Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Success Grid podcast. Here is your host Hussein Talib. My guest today has serviced in the US Army more than 20 years as a paratrooper. David Fivecoat has helped enhance the leadership of hundreds of individuals and improve the processes of dozens of companies through executive coaching, speaking, and leadership events as the founder of Fivecoat Coaching Group. Also, he is the author of Grow Your Grit. David, welcome to the Grid podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Awesome to have you here. So tell us a little bit about your story in the Army. Why did you get in the US Army and your story until you started the Fivecoat Consulting Group?
Sure. So I grew up in Delaware, Ohio, which is in the middle of the state in a small town. And I loved to read as a kid. And one of the things I really liked to read was World War II history. And all the American generals had attended West Point, from Eisenhower to Patton to Bradley to Jim Gavin, and just really fell in love with West Point as a young kid. There had been no history of military service in my family, and when it came time to apply to colleges, I applied early to West Point, and I got in and decided to go. I had a great time while I was at West Point, made some incredible friends, and really enjoyed the education, and eventually got commissioned as an infantry officer in the United States Army. I went to the 82nd Airborne Division and served in a variety of assignments as an infantry officer, leading folks at the platoon level, which is about 35 people, the company level, which is about 135 people, the battalion level, which is about 700, and then the brigade level, which is about 3,000. That was over 24 years of service. And in 2017, I decided to transition from the Army and move into the corporate sector. I worked for another company for a couple of years. And in March of 2020, I decided to found my own company, the Fivecoat Consulting Group. I did that. I started blogging on leadership topics. I do a twice a week blog on Mondays and Thursdays on leadership topics, and have done in-person leadership training, talks on my book, and also executive coaching for clients as part of the Fivecoat Consulting Group.
Yeah, amazing. Because you've been into the military and the Army. These guys have a lot of discipline, I think. So it helped you a lot in your endeavors to start your own business, right?
Yeah, the discipline that I learned in the Army was certainly transferable to standing up my small business. One of the bigger challenges that I tell all my peers that are either in the Army or thinking about getting out and founding their own company is really the amount of courage that you have to have as a small business owner is incredible. If you don't have a client coming in the front door, there is no money that's going to come to you. And so I talk about how, it's scarier than jumping out of a plane. Running a small business is scarier than jumping out of a plane, because you go through all this sort of ritual and all these things, and you eventually fall out of the aircraft and the parachute works. But with a small business, you can try to do everything that you think is right, and then things won't work, and you won't have clients, and you aren't able to keep the lights on. So definitely small business, and being an entrepreneur, small business owner, has really opened my eyes to how challenging it is to be successful in the corporate world.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about your book, because your book is called Grow Your Grit. So what is grit actually is?
Yeah, so I define grit as the will to persevere to achieve long-term goals. So the will to persevere to achieve long-term goals. And I think grit is made up of six sort of subcomponents. And the first is you've got to understand what your purpose is. And that really helps because we want to tie our goals to our purpose. For whatever our purpose is, whether it's to help others or to grow your business or to be a good father or a good spouse, whatever your purpose is, then tying your long-term goals to that really makes a huge difference. It does help also with goal setting to do some smart ways of doing the goal setting. Then it requires perseverance, courage, resilience, and motivation in order to actually reach that long-term goal. And we all have long-term goals. We can all think back to January of 2021 and what did we all set out to achieve this year? For me, I wanted to grow my business and be a good father to my daughter and ride my bicycle a lot. And those were my three major goals of the year. And I've done pretty well on all of them, but the business didn't grow as fast as I thought it was going to go this year. Now, my COVID project was writing the book. I don't know what you decided to do during COVID, but I decided that I was going to write a book because I had said for years, I'm going to write a book. And so I actually sat down and over about 6 months, really worked hard to put the book together, found an editor, and then published it here in July. And you get to see my dog, my coworker Samantha there is walking around because she's thinking, "Hey, can I get dinner a little bit early?"
Well, amazing. So working in the military, because you had this kind of mindset, and now in transitioning into your own business, what do you say to people who already below target? What do you do to encourage them and make them take that step forward and to change to the things that they actually want to achieve, the goal or the purpose?
Yeah, I think a big thing is confronting your fears and acknowledging what your fears are, and then developing a plan to sort of manage those. And for me, for years, I was like, I want to write a book, but I was scared. What if folks don't like it? What if nobody reads it? What if only my mom reads it? And those sort of nagging things caused me to procrastinate and not write and get distracted as I tried some other books, some efforts to write other books. And so one of the big things that I talk to the people that I do executive coaching to is one of the best tools that I've learned is you list out your fears. And you take each of your fears, and for me, it was like, well, what if nobody reads it? I'm like, oh, okay, that'll be all right. And then you develop a plan to mitigate that. Well, I'll advertise. I'll get it up on Amazon. I'll go and sell it in person at these places, and then maybe more than a handful will read it. The average book sells about 400 copies. I'm happy to tell you that I'm over 670 copies and closing
cool.
700. So I'm above average on the book.
Yeah, cool. Amazing. That's cool. So in these kind of things, like, for example, you mentioned you want to start a book. So sometimes procrastination comes in the middle of things. We postpone things. So what do you think the key skills or important skills that people should develop most?
Yeah. So one of the big things that helped me with the book is this idea of a streak, and a streak is where you do something every day for a consecutive number of days. The American baseball players, if they hit a baseball every day for a couple of weeks, it's usually pretty remarkable because nobody does that. The same thing happens though if you want to be successful at anything. Is start a streak. And for me, it was, I need to do 15 minutes a day on the book. And so I started out and, one day I would write, the next day, maybe I would edit. And then the third day, maybe I'd go look for pictures that I was going to include in the book. And this idea of always putting in 10 to 15 minutes into whatever this project that you're working on every day is one of the things that can help overcome that fear or that procrastination. Another thing is breaking the big project up into smaller ones. And I don't know about you, but if you have a big project, and one of the big projects was I owed, but I kept procrastinating it. And finally I had to break it up into smaller things. Like, okay, today I'm just going to work on the invoice. Tomorrow I'm going to make some changes on the overall contract. And then I'll review it on the third day. And then I'll finally send it out. Just that act of breaking it up into smaller chunks makes it easier to handle. Yeah. What's one thing that you're procrastinating on right now?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I think I am in the process of developing a course to sell Sometimes I postpone things because, for example, because now I should have the course finished by October 1st, which is today, but still not. So hopefully now by the end of October. So, but because when I started, for example, I didn't think that there's much work to do. And when I started doing that, there's actually a lot of things to do. So sometimes
Yeah.
I postpone them. So when that happens, you will jump ahead in time and you'll have to kind of reschedule things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So two things I recommend for you to do to help you get across the goal line by the 31st of October. First off, write down every single little thing that you have to do. So you make a list of 20, let's say you've got 20 things left to do to actually get the course out, and then you write them all down. And then for me, I always like putting little boxes next to them so I can check them off and feel like I accomplished. And put time on the calendar every day between now and the 31st to work on it. And, even if it's only 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever you've got during the day, those two things of dividing it up into these smaller chunks. Because if you just say, hey, I got to finish the course by the 31st, you're going to keep procrastinating on it. But if you say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to record episode number 4, that's more manageable. And then you put some time on the calendar. I think those two things will help you get to the goal line, and love to see your course. So please send me a note when you get it live on October 31st.
Yeah, awesome. So that's a great tip, actually. Actually, I was thinking about that because when I was thinking if I want to finish it in 30 days, or at least like finish it will be like a drip content kind of course, like every 1 week or 2 weeks there is some kind of module. So at least it will be, for example, 3 modules. So it will be like total of 5. So 3 hopefully it will be out. So I will start like promoting these kind of things, and the other 2 it will be fine if I finish them after. But now with these tips, I can work on that, and maybe the whole thing can be finished by then, because it will make things easier instead of actually doing that over that time span,
Yeah, a lot less stressful if you have the whole course finished before you launch it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've known other people that have launched it with only one lesson done, and
because when you think of, like, for example, drip content, every week or 2 weeks there is some kind of a module. It will be fine to have it not finished completely yet, but if it's all already done, it will be a much better option. You can focus on the marketing side, let's say, of things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So exactly.
I had the same problem with the book. I didn't finish the book until about 15 days before I had set a date on Amazon to have it released. And if you don't get the book hung on Amazon within like a week prior to it launching, Amazon puts you in timeout and you can't sell for X number of months afterwards. So there was this huge rush, and I talked to other folks that are putting books together. Hey, set a date and finish the book 3 months out, and then spend the next 3 months marketing it, because I wish I had more chance to market it after it was in its final version, and try to get more pre-sales and folks interested in it, because the mad rush to get it done made it tough to do enough marketing.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes, like, you talked a little bit about fear, right?
Yeah.
And how sometimes we as humans have fears of failure, fear of success, maybe fears of whatever it is, fear of rejection. So how do you recommend working with fear and to develop courage to go through these kind of things, especially now with and I mean, like, kind of COVID may be past. I don't know if it's completely past, but hopefully it will pass and end soon. So how do you work with your current like that in these situations?
Yeah, like I said, the big tool that I really like is this idea of listing all your fears and then listing a mitigation measure against each of those fears. Like if you're afraid to go to a conference or something like that because of COVID, you say, okay, well, my mitigation strategy is I'll go to a virtual conference, or I'll call 3 friends because I know I need to network and have some social interaction, but I'm scared to go out because I'm worried about catching COVID. And so you say, okay, here's my fear. And so you write it down, and then you talk about, okay, well, what's the worst thing that will happen? And then, okay, how do I mitigate it or figure out a way around it? And to make the same thing happen. That's really the biggest tool that I think helps folks. There's other tools like developing resilience, which I think is a whole person kind of approach, where you've got to get the right amount of sleep, you've got to eat well, you've got to do some physical fitness on a daily basis, and then you've got to have a little bit of mindfulness to sort of help keep your sharper edge.
Yeah, because you were in the military, having to do like maybe daily exercise is something that's routine to you, I guess.
Yeah. And all the folks that I coach, I encourage them as well to do some sort of daily physical fitness. And it's one of those, physical fitness is an easy thing to see, but you see folks' fears hold them back from that. And one of the big things is, hey, I'm not, I can't work out unless I can go to the gym, and that takes me an hour, and I can't do all this. I'm a big fan of, hey, you set the standard that, hey, I'm going to get 10 minutes of physical fitness in a day, and if I get that in, I'm happy because I did something, and I didn't just sit on the couch or sit in my chair or sit in front of the computer doing work. So for instance, like I walk you saw Samantha, she's been great. We go for a long walk, every morning, and then I come back into the house, and I've got a little home gym set up where I can do some push-ups and sit-ups and air squats and a few other exercises. But if I only get that 10 minutes in a day, I'm not totally sad that I don't get out on my bike and do this, monster 100-kilometer ride that I, had planned or something like that. So you just got to think about, okay, 10 minutes is better than nothing. And setting up the expectation that you've got to have this perfect workout, sets me up for failure, sets you up for failure. So come to the realization that if I get 10 or 15 minutes in a day, that's okay. But a lot of times when you start out with that 10 to 15 minutes, you'll stay and do more because
it will build up momentum, maybe.
Yeah. I'm sweaty, I might as well, keep on the bike for another hour or whatever it is. And so, and pick things that you like. We're all at that stage where you're probably not going to go to the Olympics. And so, do sports that you like. If you can't stand being on the treadmill, don't do the treadmill. Find something, a rower or a bike or walking or jogging outside or whatever. But if something is just crushing your spirit, don't do it because you think you have to. Find something that you enjoy and do that, because you'll be more likely to stick to it.
Exactly. There is multiple things you can do: walking, running, lifting weights, whatever. There's lots of options.
Yeah. What do you like to do?
Me, I actually, when I was younger, I used to like running. I used to run a lot. But when I got older, I played a little bit. We're talking here about like 10 years ago. So I started bodybuilding for a while. I played for like 3 years. And then I left bodybuilding and moved to boxing. I played boxing for like 3 years also, something like that. And then I started... I quit all of that, and I'm not really physical right now, especially nowadays. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure you've got a jump rope from your boxing days.
Yeah. I still have it.
That's an easy.
The jump rope and the gloves. I still have the old one. The first ones I bought actually.
Good. Well, I'm sure you can get the jump rope out and do that for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Whip yourself back into fighting shape.
Yeah, actually, when I started boxing the first day, I remember the coach telling us the first thing you need to do is to jump rope. It's about endurance, and it gives you ability to have powerful breath and stay longer and capacity to fight. Because boxing, when you look at it, you think, oh, it's not really that hard. there is no, there's nothing really there, but it's actually very tiring to someone who's new. So I started doing the jump rope. I didn't know how to do it, but when I actually got to do it, it was really fun. It's really fun exercise. You can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of movement with it. So yeah, even the basics ones are fun.
Yeah. Well, it keeps you up on your toes too, so you can transfer the weight through your hips with your boxing punch.
Yeah,
we had to take boxing at West Point as our freshman gym class, and the 2-minute rounds seem like they go forever.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. The 2 or 3 minutes, like you think this is gonna, but the first round, the second round, you're it's it's very cool sport. But actually, I was one of the people who were afraid to break the nose, because my nose is. So I was afraid to get my nose broken, but fortunately it didn't get broken at all. But I got some hit, but never broken. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But at the time, the coach told me I am like 1 meter 75 centimeters, so I'm like 5'11", I think. So he told me, if you can keep up with it, you can be like some kind of a pro, semi-pro thing. I told him, no, this is not my goal. I'm here just for fitness goals, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Also, I mean, it's really great sport. It's really great sport. But what I don't like, the MMA, I don't really like it that much, because I think boxing is more elegant. Let's say elegant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So working with your clients, like for example, and leaders and these kind of things, where do you see them, let's say, do things wrong, maybe, or these kind of things?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know, the folks that I work with, usually aren't doing things wrong, but they're looking for a way to take themselves to the next level. Whether it's as a group to figure out how to build themselves together as a better team or improve their culture, or as individuals, how do they take themselves to the next level? How do they have a little bit more accountability? How do they get some different ideas or different thoughts into how they're leading folks in their business? Those are really the folks that I've worked with. What I see when they come approach me, what they're looking for.
Yeah, because sometimes, and I talk to other people sometimes, because the leaders who are upstairs always, like for example, especially if they have lots of people under them, all they care about is the job to be done, and just keep pushing people and looking them from the top view. You know what I mean? It's not like they are kind of team players, let's say.
Yeah. Well, and it's certainly been an extremely tough environment over the last 18 months with COVID. People are the biggest resource of any company, no matter if it's a small one-person company or the largest 60,000 employee kind of company. And leaders have to have that ability to look after and engage and talk and understand the folks that are working for them. There needs to be some empathy there. It can't just be, hey, we've got to accomplish this task. You need that. You need to set goals and objectives, but in the same point in time, it's one of the things I've taken from the Army is you have to look after your people. You got to accomplish the mission, and then you got to take care of your people, and that comes in a wide variety of ways. One of the people that I was just talking with, one of the things that I coached her to think about is, today's the 1st of October, the holidays are coming up in December. They all, one of the things that I thought was important for her was to make sure that her entire team is all getting some time off over the holidays. And she needed to make sure that they had submitted their time to take off over the holidays. Not necessarily everybody could be gone at the same time, because they're trying to roll out a new product and do some interesting things there. But her role as a leader is to look after her people and make sure that they get some time off to recharge, so they come back in January and they're ready to work and take the company on to even bigger and better things in 2022.
Yeah. So, David, can you give us one takeaway from this episode that can be actionable tip?
Yeah. So, the actionable tip that I think the biggest thing is where you and I talked about, hey, if you have a goal like rolling out a show or writing a book or even just a big project at work, break it down into little chunks. Figure the time spent on breaking the big project down into little chunks and identifying each of those chunks that has to be done, and maybe figure out the order that they have to be done in, and then marking time on the calendar. Those two things are the biggest things that I think inhibit folks from accomplishing big goals. Is figuring out the problem and then figuring out a way to tackle the problem and solve it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you have to tackle the problem like in sports. You have to sometimes just stop the attacker. The defender has to stop the attacker from attacking their own goal.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So where can people get in touch with you, David?
Yeah, so I have a website, the fivecoatconsultinggroup.com. My folks can email me as well, david.fivecoat@thefivecoatconsultinggroup.com. Like I said, I do a blog post twice a week on leadership topics. The book is for sale on both Amazon, and you can get to it off my website as well. But love to hear from your audience, and if I can help them in any sort of way, please reach out, and love to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you for being here today with me on this episode of the Success Grid podcast. This was an amazing episode.
Thank you.